What's up, everybody? Greg Helbeck here. Welcome to this week's REI Weekly Lesson. If you are not familiar with me, I've been a full-time real estate investor now for 10 years, and I've done well over 350 properties, and a lot of them have been flips, a lot of them have been wholesales, I have some rentals. So everything you're going to learn from me is from the trenches, from the streets, from my experience. So if you are looking to become a very successful real estate investor, whether you're new or if you are looking to become an even more successful investor, if you're experienced, this is the content to watch. So if you get value from this, do me a favor, share the show, like the video if you're on YouTube, because that's how we keep growing it on a weekly basis. So today I'm going to talk about 3 things that are going to sink your ship on a home inspection when you're selling a property to a retail buyer. So if you're not familiar with that process, what happens is, you buy a house, you put it on the market, maybe you fix it, maybe you don't fix it, who knows? Sometimes you can wholesale a house, which means you just buy a house and throw it on the retail market as is. Sometimes you rehab a house and you put a bunch of work into it and then sell it turnkey. But any retail buyer, for the most part, if you're on the MLS, is going to do a home inspection, whether they're paying cash or not. And these are 3 things that I have learned that will sink your ship when a home inspector goes to your property and most likely will result in a renegotiation or a credit. So the first is obvious: foundation issues, right? Sometimes you might walk a property and you might not think there's a foundation issue, but if you get the buyer in there, if you're selling it and they get a home inspector or even a foundation expert, they're going to look through every nook and cranny of that house, right? And it all depends on the property. If it's on a slab, it's pretty obvious. If it's in a deep, poor basement foundation, it's a little harder to find. But if you get a buyer in there and they do an inspection and the inspector goes and finds foundation issues, that is going to scare the buyer. And they are going to either walk away or they're going to ask for a crazy credit, most likely, or they ask you to fix it. And that can sink your ship. So what I would tell you to do in that case is, do your homework before you buy the house, right? Like, make sure that there's no obvious foundation issues, because ultimately it's going to be a problem for the buyer. It's going to be a problem for you. And as you can imagine, foundation issues are very vague. They could be expensive. Sometimes they're not bad, but that will scare a buyer, because what do they say? You could have the best house in the world, but if it's built on a bad foundation, it's not going to be good. So the second issue that I've seen with home inspections is they will basically rip apart your plumbing, right? Like if you have plumbing issues, which could mean the boiler, it could mean the furnace, it could mean the piping. But if that home inspector finds major plumbing issues, they are going to ask for some big money in the form of a credit, or they might just straight up walk away, because if you have a house with bad plumbing, that's going to be a problem. I guess a cousin to plumbing would be like a septic issue, which is, when your property is not on like a local sewer system, it has a septic tank. And if they do a septic inspection and they figure out the septic isn't working, then that can be expensive. So I'm going to call plumbing and septic kind of one thing. So how do you know if that is going to be an issue or not before you sell your property, before the buyer gets the inspection? Well, number one, you want to test it yourself, right? Flush the toilets, run all the sinks, make sure that there's no leakage underneath the vanities in the kitchen, in the cabinets, in the bathroom, in the vanities. Turn on the boiler, turn on the furnace, make sure that heat is kicking out. And if it's not kicking out, they're going to find that on a home inspection. Even if it's the middle of July, you still want to run the heat, make sure it works. So just do these things before you get the home inspection. Do like a pre-inspection before the inspection, if you know what I'm saying. So that'll save you a lot of time, and hopefully you fix them before they do the home inspection. But if there's a buyer that goes into a house and they see there's plumbing issues, it's not going to go well for you. The third big thing that I see is probably the third thing you're assuming, which is the electric. So this is, obvious. Electric is dangerous. You need to make sure that the house is wired properly. You got to make sure that there's GFCI outlets in there, which protects the health and safety of anybody in the property. And a home inspector is going to go around and they're going to test the GFCI outlets. They're going to make sure that they're there. If they're not there, they're going to ding you. They're going to look at the panel. They're going to see the wiring. So my recommendation to not get burned on that is, before you go and put that property on the market, you get an electrician in there as a consultant and you have them look at all the electric and give you their honest opinion. Because if they tell you this electric is shot, you're going to know about that, and you can add that hopefully as part of your budget. So those are the 3 big ticket items that will cost you on a home inspection. And this is where they can go wrong, is you can get, a property on the market, you can get a lot of demand because it's priced right. You can get multiple offers. You could select the highest and best offer. The buyer can be so excited. They're going to get their home inspection done, and then the home inspector can find these items that I mentioned, and that offer that you have that you're going to make 100 grand on could turn into 50 grand, right? So hopefully you got value from this. If you did, please do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, share the show if you're listening on audio. And if you're in the Hudson Valley or the Seattle area or Delaware and you have a house you want to wholesale to me, or wholesale with me, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or drop me a DM on Instagram at grego37, and I'll see you on the next REI Weekly Lesson. Take care.